Meaning of staying human for me is basically the golden rule that you do to other people what you want them to do to you, and always to remember, as they say somewhere in the Bible, I'm told, I don't know where, but but for the grace of God go I. Then I'm here, and I'm not in Gaza by the throw of the dice, God's throw of the dice. I could have been there, and the person in Gaza could be here. It was just good luck. It was good fortune for me. And staying human means to remember I could have been there, and if I was there, I would want the person here to do something. So always, my late mother used to say, you never know where you'll be tomorrow, which is another way of saying it's God's throw of the dice. When she was in Poland, she went to very good schools, was the president of her class. Then 1937, she went to study mathematics at the University of Warsaw. And she had a very good life. Concerts, ice skating, studied Latin. And then in the blink of an eye, the whole world was turned upside down. And she was reduced to human garbage. So she learned the hard way. You never know where you'll be tomorrow. And so we should always try to remember that if we have good fate and we have good fortune, part of it is because of what we do with our lives. That's true. But part of it is just luck. And if we were, by misfortune, we ended up in the wrong place through no fault of our own, we would want others to help us, to be there for us. I don't think the problem is changing the way of descent. The problem is most people in the world know there's something really wrong with this system. That there are too few people who are getting too much and too many people who are getting too little. And there are all sorts of problems, environment, health. There's so many problems that need to be solved. And under the current system, they are not being solved, and there's no hope of them being solved. I would say 99% of the people in the world know that. I'll leave aside China and India. I don't want to speak for them because I think those are different circumstances. But I'll say in the Western world, know that, and probably large parts of Latin America also. So they already know that. The challenge is, I think, the one that Gandhi always spoke about. How do you get people to act on what they already know is wrong? You don't have to educate them, and you don't have to enlighten them. They already know there's a big problem here, but they don't do anything about it. And the question is, how do you get people to act? And so I don't think it's a question of changing the method of descent. I think it's finding the right tactics and the right goal that will get people to act. You have to set a goal which makes sense to people. If you set the goal too far, you lose them. So in our city, or I should say in our country, when people start to chant, we are the 99%, every American understood that. And they understood there's a 1% who's just getting away with robbery. They understood that. But if the movement at the beginning, if it had said nationalize the banks, now I'm not giving a personal opinion. Of course, I think banks should be nationalized, but you wouldn't have got a reaction from people. They're not there. You can't go beyond where people are. You just lose them. So you have to find the maximum point of reaching people because you want the most enlightened, the most progressive goal. But you have to be careful about not going beyond, because then you just become a sect or a cult. You're no longer involved in politics. And that, basically that's not theory. That's people who have deep roots among the people. They're the ones who know how far you can take them before you lose them. So it's not something you're going to find in a book. It requires going among the people, living with the people, understanding them, knowing not just what they're thinking, but what's just below the surface. The English word is not just their consciousness, but their incipient consciousness. What's just below the surface. If we just push them a little more, they'll go with us. But you can't find that out in books. You have to strike deep roots among the people. And that was basically, you could say that was Gandhi's connection with the Indian people. He dug his roots very deep among the Indian people. He knew them, and they knew he was one of them, the Indian people. They knew he was one of them. And that he understood their problems, not in a bookish way. He understood their problems from the moment you get up in the morning to the morning you go to sleep. And that's the way you build a movement, I don't think the problem is changing the methods of dissent. I think the problem is we have to sink deep roots among the people, understand them, see how far you can take them, how far they're willing to go, and figuring out the tactics which will get them to act. Some of it is drama, some of it is theater, a lot of it is death. Unfortunately, that's what gets people to act. A hunger striker who goes out for 60 to 70 days, he's verging on death. The Israelis begin to worry. If he dies, we have a big problem in our hands because there might be an eruption. So a lot of times it requires taking your life to the point of death in order to get people to act. That's the way human beings are. I wish it were otherwise. But finding the right tactics, and as I said, one of those tactics often is risking your life to the point of death and dying. But finding the right tactics that will finally shake people up enough that they say, you know what? I'm going out in the streets. I've had it. We've had it. That to me, I don't think it requires, great, profound thought. It requires hard work and personal sacrifice, a willingness to do the dirty work. And everything else comes with the willing. Of course, you need smart people who understand the big picture. I know that. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But even the smart people who understand the big picture, they have to be part of a movement that's has deep roots among the people. Otherwise, it'll never happen. So, that to me is the challenge. Well, we have to, but I think the problem is, I think all of these questions are wrongly phrased and wrongly put. We do not set the goal. It's public consciousness that sets the limit of the goal. We have to see where people are at, not where we're at. If it's just about us, it's not about politics, it's about a cult. And then you could set whatever goal you want. Gandhi, he was a political leader, but he also was a leader of a cult. He had ashrams. And in his ashram, he would say, no meat, no sex. He's a brahmacharya. No this, no that, no this, no that. he could set any goal, because in his ashram, he's not trying to reach the public. He's just trying to reach the people who agree they want to live in this little cult with him. And Gandhi understood there's a difference between a cult and politics, a mass movement. And I think one of the problems with the Palestine movement is everything becomes so personal. What do you support, one state or two states? What difference does it make what I support? I also support the abolition of money. So what? You know, it's like if the world is facing an economic crisis. And they ask, what do you support? Well, I support eliminating money. What does that have to do with anything? That's not on the historical agenda. It's not on the political agenda. That's what I think the problem is with all of these discussions. It's always about what you think. Where do you stand? Do you support one state or two states? Well, as it happens, I support no states. I would like to eliminate all states. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? You know, so I think that the major challenge is to reorient the way we think about politics. It's not about us. It's about politics has to be about reaching masses of people. Otherwise, to me, it's not politics. And then we have to see where people are at, what they're ready for, how far you can take them, and before you lose them. You know. But everything turns out, oh, you support two states, you're a Zionist. That's just stupid. What if the entire international community supports two states? So what are we supposed to do? Say we don't care what the world thinks? That's not politics. That's a cult. Yeah. That's a sect. It's not politics. And I don't want to have anything to do with it. I want to change people's lives. I want to make people's lives better. I'm not out to make myself feel good and show the world, look at me, see how pure I am. I'm too old for that. I'm not trying to make a statement to the world about how wonderful I am. I want to resolve the conflict. And it's time to move on. There's something completely insane about this conflict. You want to date it? You can start dating it from the Balfour Declaration. We're coming on 100 years. 100 years. I mean, it's time to resolve the conflict. But unfortunately, I think there are a lot of people now who don't, in the solidarity movement, who don't want to resolve the conflict. It's become, it's become a business. It's become a symbol, a way of saying something about yourself. The people have gotten lost in all of this. It's tote bags, it's conferences, it's t-shirts, it's keffiyehs, it's just, the actual suffering has just, I think, been forgotten. And a lot of people, I honestly don't believe, want to end the conflict. They speak about ending the conflict like if you talk, a very good friend of mine, he's very popular on the web, so I won't mention his name. So he wrote me an email a few days ago, and he said, so, are you still trying to bring Arabs and Jews together for a diplomatic solution? And I wrote him back and I said, well, yeah, I want to resolve the conflict. Is there something wrong with that? What should be my goal? What are we doing? Are we striking poses? Are we showing people how radical we are? Yeah, I want to find, if possible, a diplomatic resolution of the conflict and end it. Now, I know it's going to take a lot of hard work and struggle, and it's not going to be resolved in the UN. It's going to be resolved when Israel is forced to, and it's only going to be forced to if the Palestinian people get their act together and the people abroad who support them get their act together. I'm fully aware of that. But there was a kind of undertone like, you're trying to resolve the conflict? Oh yeah, I am. I think a lot of people are not anymore. I do.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to end the conflict. I don't think they particularly care. Because it's just become an investment, a personal investment, a business investment. You know, it's even for me, I'm not afraid to admit it. I started out literally 30 years ago this month, because I started on June 6, 1982, when Israel invaded Lebanon. And it's 30 years. If the conflict ends, I have nothing left to do. I spent 30 years, it became an investment. So if the conflict were to end, I'd have to get up. All right, now, what am I doing with the last 15 years of my life? Because all I did was read on this conflict. You know, I acknowledge that, but I think I'm strong enough to say, okay, that's a problem, but I want the conflict to end.
Yeah.
I think some people do not anymore. And I think a lot of other people, it's just a kind of symbolism. They want to show how radical they are, how pure they are, how much better they are. You know, I'm past that. I'm not. I don't even want to, talk about it. It doesn't interest me. So I don't think the problem is finding new methods of dissent. Though, we still have to figure out ways how to move people. It's for sure. Gandhi had his tactics and the fasts, the march to the sea. He had many tactics. He was a very good organizer. But I think the main problem is general orientation. What are we trying to accomplish? What's our goal? And secondly, making the sacrifices of living among the people. Because no textbook is going to tell you what you can or can't do. When I meet people who are organizers, real organizers, I sit down with them and I want to hear, okay, what are people thinking? What are they ready for? What can they do? Those to me are the most invaluable people. They give you a real sense of where people are at, and that's politics. That's politics.